Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad to have you here. So if you want to see how I made this beautiful fitted gown with ruffles, watching, if you're here to subscribe, click the subscribe button and join the family. Thank you. So as you can see, I've gone ahead to draw my horizontal lines. I have my shoulder line, upper bust line, under bust line, and my waist. So what I'm doing is to take note of my shoulder slope. If you've been watching my video earlier, you should know how I do that. So that is that. So I took note of my shoulder line, marked it at the upper bust line, and then connected. So for the front armhole, I came in by 3/4, use a ruler to connect it. And then what I'm doing is to divide my bust by 4 and then take note of it, because that's where the curve for the armhole will stop. So the next is to take my neckline. So depending on what neckline you want to use, feel free to freestyle, feel free to use whatever neckline you want to use. So that is that. So the next is to divide my bust span by 2 plus 0.5. So my bust span is 7.5 divided by 2 is 3.75 plus 0.5, which is 4.25. So that was what I noted on my bust line and my waistline, and then connected with a straight line. So I came down by 1 inch. So on both sides, I'm going to take 0.75. That's for the bustier. It depends on how big you want your bust curve to be. So but for mine, what I did is just 0.75. You can decide to take 1 inch on both sides, 1.5 on both sides. So it all depends on how you want yours to be, but for mine it's just 0.75 on both sides. So what I did is to take note of the midpoint of my armhole and then add 0.5 to it and then connect it to have my princess dart line. So that is that. And after taking half I up to sit well, I came up by 1 so that I won't have any shortage. I already have a detailed tutorial on how to draft and cut your princess dart bustier, so I'm going to put the link on the description box, so you can do well to watch it for a more detailed explanation. So that's that. So the next is to take my measurement. So after taking my measurement, that's my bust divided by 4 plus 2-inch seam allowance. 2-inch seam allowance, and also all those the 1.5 for the waist means my waist divided by 4 plus that 1.5 that will be cut out plus 2-inch seam allowance. So that is that. And then I went ahead and connect. So after connecting, what I did is to add half-inch seam allowance at the shoulder. That's what I will use to add the front shoulder to the back. So I went ahead to cut. So you can see the front panel. So for the back panel, I've took note of my zip allowance. I have my shoulder line, my upper bust line, and then my waistline. Just like how I did for the front panel, I took note of my shoulder slope, connected it to get my armhole curve. And for the back armhole curve, we don't have to come in by 3/4. No, just use that straight line. So that is that. So I'm connecting for the armhole. So this is my armhole. And then for the dart, I also divided my bust span by 2 plus 0.5, which is 4.25. So I marked it down and then took the midpoint of the armhole curve and connected it to have my princess dart. So I went ahead to take my measurement. That's my waist divided by 4. I took note of it and then connected it. So after that, I'm going to take my neckline. Make sure that the front width and the back width is the same. Don't forget. So that is that. So I'm also adding half-inch seam allowance at the shoulder. After that, I went ahead and cut. Do not forget your zip allowance, or else you'll not be able to wear your clothes. So take note. So this is the back panel. This is the back panel. And this is the front. So for the down part of the gown, I've gone ahead to take note of my waistline, hip line, and then where the gown is going to stop. That's the above my nail. So what I'm doing is to take note of my dart, and what I use for my dart is my bust span, which is 4.25, like I explained earlier. So I marked 4.25 at my waistline and at my hip, then use my ruler to connect it to have a straight line. So for the front panel, I came up by 2 inch, so that's where my dart will be stopping, and then I took ½ inch on both sides. I took ½ inch on both sides. That's for the dart. So the next is just to take my measurement. That's my waist divide by 4 plus 1 inch of that dart, and then plus 2-inch seam allowance. Then for my hip is just my hip divide by 4. Take note that the dart is not extending towards the hip line. So for the down part, whatever I have on the hip line, I'm going to minus 1. So that is that. So that's how I marked and then connected. So the two lines there is, one is for the actual measurement and the other one is for the zip, for the seam allowance. So I went ahead to add ½ inch up that I will use to join it to the upper part. So for the back panel, what I did is just to place the front panel and then notch the necessary 3 areas. Take note that for the back panel, remember to take note of your zip allowance, because the zip is going to extend towards the down part. So take note. So what I did is just to get my dart for the back panel, and the only difference is that my dart for the back panel, I came up by 1 inch. I came up by 1 inch and then took ½ inch on both sides. So that's that. If you're watching my previous tutorial, you should understand how I was able to do that. So if you have any question, let me know in the comment section and I'll be glad to answer your question. So I went ahead to cut. So I've gone ahead to turn the front, that's the upper part, with the lining. I cut the lining exact where I cut the fabric, and then turn it, sew and turn. So this is it. So for the front, for the upper front, that's the upper one, I'm going to join it to the down one. So, and also for the back panel too, I'm also going to do the same. I'm going to join them. Make sure that the darts for the upper one and the down one, it's like they are, as in they are in a straight, as in they meet each other, so give it that unique look. So make sure. So after that, you go ahead and join the shoulder. So for the shoulder, I used the back panel, turn it over, sew, and then so that the stitch will be inside. You can see it, the stitch is inside. So I've gone ahead to also fix the zip. And then for the ruffles, it's just to take note of the round measurement and then where you want the ruffle to stop, and then cut out a long strip. After cutting out the long stripe of fabric, you just gather and attach to your gown. But take note of the length you want your ruffles to be. So just take note of the length. Mine was about 11. I used 1 inch for the hemming. So that's that. So after cutting it out, then for the width, you can decide to make it ×3 or ×2, but I will advise you to make it ×3 for it to be very, very full. So you now gather and attach to your dress. So that is it. Gather, attach to your dress. Attach to your dress and you are good to go. As you can see, I'm through. You can see how beautiful it is. I went ahead to fix the sleeve. I already have a detailed video on how to cut a full cycle sleeve. So I'm going to put the link to the video up, or it's going to be on the description box, so you can do well to check it out. So you can see how it is very, very beautiful. So that's that. I hope you learned something from this video. If you do not forget to give me a thumbs up, like, and share with your friends till I come your way next time with another interesting tutorial. Do have a lovely